Yeah, so thanks everyone and thank Andrea for probably what, Andrea, an hour and a half's notice and I rushed over. So it's nice to be here. So Brian O'Donnell's my name. I'm the Strategic Account Executive for Rave. As Andrea said, we're one of the companies that work with Andrea's team in 911, and then we're also working with the schools, all the schools in Montgomery County, all the public schools, and then some of the private schools have decided to work with us as well. Obviously, with Uvalde and everything, and a lot of funding going on at the moment through the TA grant, and another grant just came out for I think something like 400 million to do with school safety. The one that came out just before the holidays was specific to a panic button for schools, and the one that just came out in the last week is to do with, like, you know, hardening doors, fences, cameras, you name it, and our technology also qualifies for that as well. So as you guessed, I'm not from around here, so originally from Ireland, grew up on a farm about 26 from the, miles from the southern coast. So yes, I am from down south, just not Louisiana. So I've been in the US probably since '94. So you can tell my accent's a lot softer. So Rave, we're a public safety software company. We provide technology to 911, universities. So we protect about 75% of the university population here in the US. That's where we got started. And then we started working with 911. We started working with emergency management. We've got a mass communication solution, and then also with K-12. So today in kind of the K-12 space, we've got statewide implementations in like Louisiana, where they funded it for all the schools, Oklahoma, New Mexico, North Carolina, we're just rolling out. Probably 65% of the schools in Arkansas, and then in Texas, we're working with different pockets of people if they choose to work with us. We're not the only ones out there. There is other solutions, but we are probably the only ones that take this specific approach with 911, where it's very tightly integrated. You can see this diagram here. It's kind of a simple diagram. Like in any of these situations, time is your enemy, right? So it's all about notifying 911 as fast as you can, notifying ISD, police, or safety personnel there, notifying the teachers as well so they can take action, and notifying first responders, so it's a coordinated response. And that's kind of the approach we take here at Rave. So the panic button mobile app we have, it's a very simple concept. It goes on Android and iPhones. It's got 5 main buttons, so it's designed to be very easy to use, because in that situation it's going to be stressful. Like, no matter how much training you go through, it's going to be stressful potentially, right? So there's 5 main buttons. If you press any of those buttons, it calls 911. So it's making a native call to 911, so you will get all the ANI-ALI information that comes through on it. Built into it as well is that people talk about, you know, butt dials, right? 911 is always concerned about that. Built into it, you have to keep it pressed for 1.5 seconds or it doesn't make the call. And even after that, it said, do you want to connect to 911? You hit yes, and it calls 911. As the call is going out to 911, it will send a text, a push notification via the app, and an email to a predefined group. So if it's an active shooter situation, you're probably going to notify everyone maybe at that school building, right? So all the teachers would have this on their phones. They get a text, they get a message via the app, they get an email. It'll say which button was pressed, who pressed it, and at what school. So as the call is trying to connect to 911, it'll send off that information. Even if the call dropped or something happened, right? It'll send that. As the call comes into 911, and this is how we tie into Montgomery 911, there's a few things that happen. We've got a piece of software at the 911 center where we're monitoring all the 911 calls coming in. So we've got monitoring ANI-ALI still. And then at each workstation there's a piece of software so we know which call taker picks it up. On the call taker screen, if it is a panic button activation, there's a pop-up that'll pop up on their screen that'll say it's a panic button activation. It'll say which button was pressed, who pressed it, and what school. Even if the person never says anything, you get that information, right? There's also an audio that can play through that's a panic button activation, so it's a kind of another kind of a level of awareness that it is a panic button activation at a school. Also, as it comes into 911, we have a facility safety profile that's created for each school building. And within that, they'll have floor plans, emergency contacts, procedures, any information like SOPs, any information that school, working with 911 and first responders that would be valuable to them during an incident is presented to 911. The 911 call taker can push that out to first responders in the field via the CAD. Okay. All right. Additionally, as the text, email, and message go out to everyone at the school, we can also notify via desktop. So basically the premise is you can't determine who's looking at what at that time, so we light up multiple things. We can also light up the PA system, electronic signage in the school as well, if needed. And these are all configurable. You can also integrate to access control systems as well, or camera systems as well, and trigger them as well. All right. So I covered this coming into the 911 type, location, facility. On the floor plan that's uploaded, we will plot on the floor plan based on the GPS location coming off the phone, where they are in that building. So, we are determined, or we are depending on some other technology, like on the phone, right, and the GPS and the accuracy of that. But what we do capture will get plotted on the map, and it'll give you more information on where they're located in that school. Part of the setup as well, and this kind of goes back to kind of, the butt dial side of things as well. So the panic button is only activated, like all the alerts that go out, if it happened within the geofence. So there's a geofence set up around each school building or campus. So you could have a campus with multiple buildings and multiple geofences. If I hit it inside that, then it sends out the alerts to everyone and it says it's a panic button activation. If I was to hit it outside that geofence, it's just going to call 911 like a regular 911 call. It won't say it's a panic button. Like, if someone hit it at home or someone's kid hit it by accident, right, and they got past the 1.5 seconds and doing all that, it just makes a 911 call. It won't trigger all the other alerts to go out. Okay. This is an example of the data that's shared, the floor plans, emergency contacts, and procedures. So while there is for the school, there's a repository to capture all this information. Based on our experience, the schools will maintain all this information, right? Over time. AED locations, hazardous material, any of that information can be marked on the map, staging area, all that information. And this can be pushed out to first responders as well. Now, I'm going to pause there for a second just to see if there's any questions.
I was curious, so you said the panic buttons, there was different icons there.
Yeah.
So does the call center know when the alert goes off what type of call panic is regarding?
Yes, they will. So when it comes into 911, they'll know which button was pressed. So what is on there is active shooter, fire, medical, police, and other. They'll know which button was pressed. They'll know who pressed it, the name of the person, right? Teacher, Mary, whatever. And then they'll know the location as well. So they get those 3 pieces of information, without the person saying anything. All right.
They'll know it was an active shooter, you said.
What's that?
It'll say active shooter across their screen.
Yeah, across the screen.
And it has a very loud sound that comes into the center.
Exactly, yeah.
How accurate is the location? Will it be pinpointed to a room or a hallway?
It is,
Yeah,
yes,
yeah.
it's accurate.
Okay.
It's coming off your phone, like GPS on your phone.
Mm-hmm.
So it's pulling that information and then it will plot it on the map. And our maps, when they get uploaded, they are rotated to the right like, you know, if the building is facing north, south, east, or west, it's rotated correctly on it. So when it plots it out, you know exactly.
That's something that we do, and every district and agency is different, but once I get a school floor plan in or a school site plan, they have to click for it to be approved.
Yeah,
And then my GIS department goes in, because we do all the addressing for all the stuff in our county. They go in and they see what they have physically geofenced, and they compare that to what our records show at the county to make sure that they're correct.
yeah. Before it becomes active in the system, you can review it and make sure it meets any of your standards.
Does it matter if it's a service phone or a throwaway phone, or they have to, or will they have a specific phone? 'Cause
So
like-
it's Android and iPhone. It's going to go on the teachers and staff phones. This isn't for students, right? Because they'll be set it off all the time. They download the app onto their phone, and then
So they have to have a regular phone, not a throwaway phone.
yeah,
If they have like, if
You
you
can't
have
have
a
a flip
substitute
phone.
that's in a 7-year-old substitute, and all they have is a flip phone, they won't be able to have the app obviously on their phone, but if they call 911, it's still gonna go through, and the facility profile is gonna pop up.
Yeah.
That we just, 911 won't have that they press a specific button, it's just like a regular 911 call
Yeah.
comes through, but you still get access to all the building information.
yeah. It'd be the same as if, like, you know, you had a parent, right, that didn't have the app on their phone, and say they're in the building or they're in the parking lot, and that's geofenced, and they notice something of concern and they call, it would pop up, like, you know, that they're in the geofence. You just don't know why, so you have to talk to them, right? But you have all that information
And
there
then,
as well.
I don't know, did you cover this? If it comes in and it's I'll just use active shooter, because that just is the buzzword right
Yeah.
now. Once that call comes through and they see it's an active shooter, we on our end, the dispatcher can automatically start a two-way conversation with the person that pressed the button.
Mhm.
So if they're in a situation where they can't talk, immediately that's a two-way text message that goes back and forth, and they're like, I'm in room, you know, obviously we're gonna know where in the school, but they're gonna be, you know, I'm in room, 7B, I got 30 students in here, he's right outside my door, and they don't even have to say a word.
Okay, so,
Actually, I was going to say something to your other question there was when you were saying the flip phone. So say someone, you have a teacher who says, look, I'm not going to put that on my personal phone. That could happen, right? Or they have an ancient phone, right? They can still get the text and email messages that there is an activation. So they would still receive the notifications. They wouldn't be able, they just have to call 911, right? But it still could get the other notifications that there is a threat, right? Because in these situations, I mean, you know, a teacher locking the door has been seen to make a big difference, right? That's all, because it's all opportunistic, right? As well. The other thing what Andrew was saying there is the two-way communication. If you, like, you know, schools have cameras, but obviously, you know, not all the classrooms have cameras. There's dead spots and stuff. Within Montgomery, using the Rave system, they can send a text message to any mobile number, right? The person clicks the link and it'll stream back video from their phone, and it's all archived. So if you wanted to get a view into what's going on, like, you know, and it wasn't viewable on cameras already, you could do that as well. So maybe there's injured or there's something that would be a benefit to see. So I'll come to you in a second. I know you have another question.
I have one more. So if it's a parent in the parking lot and they bet dial 911, is it gonna pop up all this?
Yes.
Yes, yeah, it'll pop up with the where is it? The facility profile and all that information, right? Because it'll say, hey, it's within this area, here's some information. The other thing is that in that scenario, if it happens, like, you know, someone that doesn't have the panic button calls or something, or even if they're outside the geofence, 911 can open up a communications console in here, and they could send a quick send out to that school and notify, you know, ISD police, or else notify all the staff of a threat that they know it's really imminent, like an active shooter, like we just saw, like, hey, we need to notify everyone. And they can send a text, an email, and a message out of the app to everyone, right? Because another situation, like, oh, what do we call it? The front office, and then it's screwing around and all sorts of things. It's like, you know, time is the challenge, right, in all this, right? So, yeah.
So as long as they're in that geofence boundary, that's the only way either a button push or 911 is gonna put up that information.
Yeah.
If a teacher's at home at night and, accidentally rolls over on their phone and presses the button, it's not gonna initiate any of that. It won't even initiate a 911 call.
Okay.
You have a question, sir?
You answered it, because the question I had was, what happens if, in a situation where they're stressed out, they don't open the app, they just call 911?
Yeah,
Is there
which
a
it
way
could
for
happen, right?
PSAP to
Yeah.
actually, like, secondary?
Yeah, so you could bring up a communication console within here and communicate with a subset or with everyone at that school and put them into lockdown, right? Or advise them to go into lockdown. I suppose that's what you'd be doing, right? As well. So it's the same as well, like, if someone was outside the geo fence, right, and then this doesn't pop up automatically, you could search for the school and then access all this information, the communication tools as well.
So any accidental call is not gonna go out to everybody, it's just gonna come into the center?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, first when we rolled it out in Arkansas, it's like any technology, don't think of everything. It was too sensitive, we were getting butt dials up the yazoo, right? And it was causing a problem. So then we put in the 1.5 seconds, and then Google and Android put another step on. Even when you do that, it said, do you want to connect to 911? And then you just swipe. So there's a double safety, and then you have the geofence as well, right? There's a few ways to ensure.
So one of our school districts had this since 2018, and we had a couple of flub ups at the beginning, and they accidentally pressed it at football practice once because it was in their pocket or whatever, and everybody will still get that alert that's on the list to get an alert that was called. So then, I get a phone call from they're like, what's going on? And it was an accident, just user error, but since then, we haven't had a problem with them doing it at all.
I mean, if you do have an accidental, so also that comes with the platform is Rave Command View. So this would be at the ISD dispatch center or communication center. They have access to this. So basically it's a holistic view of all the schools. Each school is represented by a building. If there is an activation that pops up on the map, they can get all this information as well. So they're aware straight away. But if there was a false activation, they can come in here to the communications thing and go send a message out to everyone and say, hey, this was false, and let people know, right? People use this for drills as well, to make sure they're running the drills as fast as they can, right? And test everything as well. You probably see a button here, it looks like a phone. So we also upload landlines into the system. So all the school landline numbers will get uploaded. So if it comes into you, it'll pop up and say this call is basically coming from within the school and all this information is available. You just don't know the type of incident, right? The thing we do see is active shooter, the good news is that's the one that doesn't get hit a lot. Medical gets hit a lot in a school system, right? That's the one we see. And then also, this is the Rave Command View, the communications piece.
What the medical call is about?
What's that?
But that you'd have to verify, so
Yeah.
that medical will come in medical across the screen, they're gonna do that two-way communication, or they're gonna talk and say, what's the medical purpose of your call?
Yeah. So usually in schools, we see the people that get notified of the medical is people with CPR training, the nurse and stuff like that, and some of the leadership. Not everyone's getting, so you can define who gets notified based on the button and based on the school that's pressed that. Okay. Also built into it is check-ins. It's another way to capture additional information. So you can send it out and say, look, do you have any more injured and so on? People reply yes or no. Based on where they reply, it tags it. So, on a map we can show all the reds, like over here clustered, like, people that are injured and so on. If a teacher's in a classroom, and then also you can start a two-way communication with that person as well.
So we can transfer it?
Yes,
Okay.
because that's how we do, so, I have two primaries, so the initial call or the initial push button is gonna come in at the sheriff's office or Conroe Police Department, but then Conroe ISD has their own PD, so, and they have to go on every single school call, so it automatically gets transferred there for sure, and then if it's medical, it goes to our EMS stick, PSAP. And then they're all on looking at the same info.
Now, there was one other thing we added after a few years. So schools were calling up and saying, hey, look, you know, I'm a teacher, you know, SRO or whoever, and I need help, but I don't need 911 or I don't need to call out the cavalry. So at the bottom of the app, we have a button here, and it's called Staff Assist. And basically what it is that a teacher can put in, they can put in their room number, they can type in the situation, or they can pick from 10 templates, one that's applicable. They hit send, it'll just notify ISD police and safety internally, right? We see this get used a lot.
Like a fight in the hallway?
A fight in the hallway, there's like, you know, I don't know, two kids getting into it, maybe it's not like a little crazy, right? Or there's, you know, wet floor or something like that, or the bathroom is leaking or something like, you know, where it doesn't need 911, it's kind of, they can manage it internally. And then if they need, then they can call you if they need, right, help in that situation. This gets used a lot. The good thing about this is that we see this get used more week to week, so then people become familiar with the app because it isn't just their use in once in a blue moon. So from that perspective, it's very valuable as well. All right, so this diagram has a lot going on, but this is kind of it in a nutshell, right? You hit the panic button, it calls 911, it's notifying ISD police, it's notifying the staff. Floor plans and emergency context procedures are all presented to 911. It also supports that internal staff notification, right, where it's not like the sky is falling. It also can kick off a workflow of tasks. So at that school, it could be like, you know, to verify it is an incident, do X, Y, and Z. I mean, depending on the scale of these incidents, it's even notifying like elected officials and stuff like that. There's a whole list of things they have to do, right, as well. It has drill management built into, so based on how Texas wants you to capture and report an information, these forms can be customized exactly what you need to deliver at the county level or at the state level. And then there's also status check-in. So, you know, the way I think of it is that you hit that button and straight away it generates like a automated workflow of communications, right? It's calling 911, it's notifying the ISD police, it's notifying the teachers, right, of the situation as well, or a subset of them. It's sharing information that has been shared with 911, like the floor plans, emergency context procedures, all that information. That information is getting pushed out to first responders so they have it as well. So it creates this automated workflow of communications and sharing of information that's really valuable, right? And it ties right into the call taker's workflow, how they do things today. So it's not as if they have to really, I mean, Andrea, to learn this stuff, the call takers pick it up super fast. That's what I've seen.
It's really minimal training.
Yeah. And if you have like, you know, so say your call takers have, you know, 4 or 5 screens up, it can just pop up on one screen. It doesn't have to take over the whole screen with the information. If they're typing, it doesn't take over their keyboard. They can minimize it, they can move it around wherever they want. So it's very user friendly. And it works with any call taking, any CAD system, right? And implementation, you know, we can get people up in 2 weeks. It's very soft.
And for, let's say records requests, which we know we all love, you can capture any kind of communication, written communication back and forth or anything if it was requested by the DA or whatever. I've had to pull some a couple times.
Yeah, I think it's archived for something like 7 years. Yeah. I'm trying to think what else people ask. The only piece of hardware you would need is like, you know, on the Alley split up, it just has to be on a laptop or a computer. I mean, I could easily run it on this, right, if it came to it. That's the only piece of hardware you need. The rest is all software. That's why the implementation can be so fast. And then there's all online training for the different components that your staff can take, and they get certified once they see everything. That's it. Any questions? All right. The last thing I was going to touch on, and this is fairly new, but we brought it out. It's called Rave Aware, but it's a way to leverage CAD data to notify schools of a threat before it actually is at the school. So within the Rave system here, what we're doing is we're consuming the CAD data, then there's a rules engine, right? And based on that rules engine, we can set up a geofence around the schools, right? Bigger than the school. And if there is a car chase, a chemical spill, whatever it might be, within a mile or two of that school, you set what the parameters are, it can automatically notify that school of the threat. So it's fully automated, like 911 doesn't have to do anything, but it could be set up to protect any critical infrastructure in your community. So it just sits there and runs, and it sends out the notifications via text or email to the parties. Other communities are using this as well to let other agencies know of things like, transportation and so on. They find out today, but it's probably picking up the phone, and that this can alleviate kind of the things you're doing, some of the manual things, and automate it. It's very helpful. So you think about what happened in, Uvalde and stuff. Like maybe if they knew sooner, and look, there was a lot of shit that happened there, right? It wasn't just technology; it was the human aspect as well. I mean, it's easy to look back at it, but we hear this a lot. Like if I was aware of something before it gets into the school, because that's the name of the game. It's prevention, right? With the panic button, a lot of it is mitigation, if you think about it as well, right? Maybe something's already happened and we're trying to mitigate this situation. This is more on the prevention side. Any questions? The last thing I was going to say about the panic button as well was it also today integrates with rapid deploy. So I know some people have that in their community, so it also automatically integrates into their mapping. It does as well. So on their mapping, it would present that it's the panic button activation. It'll present the facility safety profile. All that information is accessible as well. All right. Pricing, it's based, people always ask that, so I'm just cut to the chase, right? It's based on the school system. It's based on the number of schools, right? So based on the grant that came out before the holidays, if a school got allocated 100,000, say, we said that covered 2 years of the panic button for their school system. We just try to make it simple for people. And that includes setup training and all that. With Rave, we've got 24/7 support. And the support team, they're awesome. They're really good people. So a lot of them have worked in public safety. Any other questions?